Hey folks, time for another flashlight review. This time we're going to be looking at the Olight M18 Maverick. They make an Olight M10 Maverick as well. I believe the M10 is pretty much this exact same light except shorter. It takes half the battery power and puts out about 60% of the light that this one does. So today this is the M18. Now when I was looking for a weapons light, I looked at all these reviews and I saw all these people talking about Surefire, some people talking about Streamlight, some people talking about all these different brands that were really expensive. And I started looking at the specs of those lights and said, what do those lights all have in common that I like? Well, they have a good switch on the back, or a way to switch that, switch the switch out for a pressure pad. They also have an aircraft aluminum housing. And they also have an element made, let's see if I can focus here, by Cree. This one uses the Cree XML2. Every single light that I was looking at really uses this exact same element. And so when looking at different lights, I realized those are the features that really matter. Not this logo right here. Not whether it says Olight or whether it says Streamlight. It's the guts inside that really matter. So let's talk about context of use for this thing. This is my weapon light for my SPR. Now SPRs probably don't typically have weapon lights for the way most people use them, but I use this rifle as a hunting rifle a lot of times. And so if I'm hog hunting, I definitely want a light, because deer hunting, yeah, you're cut off as soon as it gets dark. But hog hunting, you can keep going into the evening a little bit. And if you see something moving out there and you can spotlight it and get a shot, that's definitely going to be a huge advantage. Now, something that I didn't even realize about this light when I bought it is this switch right here, the button, is actually glow in the dark slightly, just slightly. So if your rifle is 4 or 5 feet from you, you can see this switch even when you can't see other things, and so that's really nice. You can find the on button even in pitch black, so that's very useful. Now I rig mine up with the pressure sensitive pad, and the light and the pressure pad come separately. You can just buy the light, the M18 light, and I think that's around $55, which is still a hell of a lot better than a lot of other lights. Or you can buy a combo pack that comes with the light. It comes with a clip, which I don't have on there. It's just a real generic clip. And the pressure sensitive pad. And an aluminum flashlight mount, just to fit onto any picatinny rail. So that's how I regularly have this rigged on my SPR AR-15 that I use for hunting. I have it connected to my picatinny rail and run the pressure pad back on my foregrip, and that's what I actually use to actuate the light. Now it has different modes, so it has a little bit of a digital memory built into this light, and this can either be done with this button up here or with the pressure pad. So the switch, whichever one you use, it does the exact same thing. It has a low, medium, high, and then a strobe. And so when I use my pressure switch, I have it set to automatically turn on to the medium. And so when I turn it on, that's medium brightness. And so you can do, right now I'm holding down the switch, and you can change it with this to low, medium, high. And when you take your hand off the switch, it remembers where you left this, and that's how it will come back on. So now it's on high. I like the medium. The high is good too. The low is not really enough for my purposes with this light on my rifle. If you wanted it for indoor use or something like that, the low is probably fine, but I'm using this usually out in the woods or in a deer stand, and I want a lot of brightness, so the medium or the high is where I would go to. And now with the switch, I showed you, you can change the level like that, and then it remembers, so that was low. where you left it. And that's pretty cool because you don't have to, I have other lights where every time you want to change settings, you have to toggle through all the settings. This one, it just, you find one that you like, it always is going to come back there. And something that's consistent and reliable and that you know the brightness that it's going to be at when you turn it on, that's incredibly valuable. So I'll put that back on medium. Now something else that's interesting about this light that's not useful for me when I'm using this for hunting at all, but if you wanted to use this in a combat use, it also has a strobe. So the idea that either somebody's kicking your door down or barging in, or you're in a firefight and you're right up close to somebody, and not only do you want to see them, but you want to actually confuse them and disorient somebody. It's got a strobe on here. And I have no idea how that's going to actually look in the camera shutter, but it is bright, it'll irritate the piss out of you. And to do that, so you hold down the pressure switch just once to turn on the light. But to do the strobe, you just quickly double tap it. I'm sorry, you triple tap it. Double tap it, changes brightnesses to your next level up, which is kind of cool. Triple tap does the strobe. And that is an incredibly bright strobe and can be extremely irritating and really disorienting too if you wanted to use this light for a self-defense or any sort of a combat weapon. Now again, I have no use for that feature in my hunting context. Let's look at the reflector in here. So it's got a single LED, and that's that Cree XML2. Incredibly bright LED. I think they say this thing's 350 lumens. Maybe it's 400. Now they make the Maverick M18 and Maverick M10, and they both have a different brightness. I think they are rating their lights a little bit high, as a lot of people tend to do. They figure nobody actually owns a light meter and nobody's going to check it out, so they'll say, especially on really cheap lights, you'll see this. You'll see some cheap light and it'll say 900 lumens, which is bullcrap. It's not. they're just throwing a number out there hoping you get excited. This thing, realistically, I think the M10 says it's 350 and this one's supposed to be either 400 or 500. I think this one's about 350 and the M10 I think is about 250 or 300. But still, for the uses I described, that is more than enough. And this light uses, let's talk about power real quick. It uses two CR123s. I don't know what brand I have in here. Not that it really matters. They're all 12 volts. But you put them in this little, I guess, magazine, if you will, and that holds the batteries so they won't be jostled around at all. And I'm a big fan typically of these CR123 batteries because they give you just a lot of power. And if you're putting out, I don't know, we'll just throw out an arbitrary number. If you're putting out 200 lumens and you're using a CR123 to do it, you're going to get a lot longer battery life than if you're putting out 200 lumens and you're using AA's to do that. Now, I would not recommend this light as a general all-purpose survivor light because of those CR123 batteries. This is a great weapon light, a great special purpose light, even a good light to keep in your car or someplace where you know you're going to use it. You're going to go back to a situation where you can power it up again. But I would not necessarily use this as your bug out light just because those batteries are going to be more expensive to stock, harder to find than something like AA's. But for a weapon light, anything that uses those batteries is probably going to immediately be more efficient and more powerful than anything that uses AA's. Now, we were talking about the lens and reflector earlier. It's got that Cree element in there. It's got a very bright finish. I believe that's just polished aluminum finish reflector in there, and it's got that little pink seal. Now, it's a waterproof seal. It's got a little lens here, so the actual element's not exposed. You can't focus the lens, which at first I was upset about, but it turns out the focus of this lens is about really where I'd want to use it. I would describe this as a medium flood, or maybe even a narrow flood. It's not a spot. It's not just a pure circle with a tight focus. It's more of a flood, but it's not so wide that it's 180-degree flood. It definitely works well for mounted on a rifle. And it's got this waterproof seal around it, that little strip of kind of pinkish red around there. And you actually can see that around the outer diameter of the beam. Now, it doesn't look like a harsh red filter. It just looks like it's got this little pinkish aberration. If you're familiar with lighting or camera terms, aberration is just when your colors of light are distorted through your lens, and you may see a green fringe on one side and a magenta fringe on the other. That's kind of what this looks like, but just with a pinkish fringe around the edge of the light. Really, it doesn't bother me at all. And so if you're looking for a high value weapons light, I would definitely recommend the Maverick M18. The M10 might be decent, but for just a couple dollars more, I would say go with the higher power. Now right here where the wire is connected, let's see if I can actually focus in there. It says Olight Technology RM10. Now this is the M18, but that just kind of proves how this is standardized, and this same receiver will work on either one. This is a little bit hokey. I can already tell it's getting loose. I've had this for less than a year. If anything on this light is going to crap out on me, it's probably going to be that connection right there. In which case, I still have the original cap that came with this, not with the pressure switch. And ultimately, I would rather the bonus feature pressure switch that's probably a $15 value. I'd rather that crap out on me than an actual component of the light itself. So yeah, that's a little hokey, but for the price and for the light itself, I kind of get it. I understand it. Because really, even if that dies, the light doesn't go down. I just need to put my other end cap on there. And so that's really me dogging on the bonus feature more than the light itself. So this is a pretty decent light. Now would I trust it as much as I would trust a Surefire? No. A Surefire definitely is going to be built a little bit better, probably a little bit more rugged. Maybe the switch in there is a little bit better. The element is comparable for sure. But we have to kind of look at the other side of this. Would I rather have one Surefire, or would I rather have 2 or 3 of these? Again, I'd rather have 2 or 3 of these. Now, if I'm in law enforcement and I'm going to be using my light all the time, or I'm regularly using this as a combat light, I'd probably rather have a Surefire. But for the purpose of just general use or hunting, or you want this just kind of on your rifle as a backup plan, not something that you're going to be using and banging around every single day of the week, I would recommend a light kind of in this value range. And I think that's a lot of my audience as well. People who are really into high adventure gear, but that's not necessarily their everyday activity. They're not looking at a light that they're literally going to be using to defend their life every single day. They're looking at something that's great for adventuring, great for shooting, great for hunting, as a part-time thing. And I think this light does a great job for that purpose.